On the day when Axel Rudakubana has been jailed for 52 years, and the moment he's jailed, people are immediately saying that maybe the jail sentence of 52 years is unduly lenient. Well, it may be. It may be. But that questioning of authority is now routine. And what's interesting is I've been looking at some other things today, and I'm more than happy to come back to the Rudakubana question later on. But for the moment, I'd like to touch on Quasi Kwarteng, because he's a person I've often poked fun at in his sojourn with Liz Truss. I've also made it very clear that I think he's one of the best writers that the Conservative Party has had in the last 10 to 15 years. His writing about Mrs. Thatcher is impeccable. The article that he's penned for the I newspaper is simply astonishingly direct. And political history often lends itself to irony. And this article seems to be particularly to be drawing on a particularly rich vein of irony. President Trump's second inaugural address, equal parts spectacle and sermon, has once again drawn this strange cohort of British political figures seeking the warmth of his ever-fluorescent aura. Yet only Boris Johnson, the Conservatives' exiled bard, only me, managed to penetrate the inner sanctum of Trump's church. And the rest, Liz Truss, Nigel Farage, Suella Braverman, Lawrence Fox, were left outside in the cold. They found themselves orbiting the periphery, metaphorically and physically. They weren't on the inside. And Quasi Kwarteng, a man who has tasted both the sharp sting of political downfall and the sweet clarity of distance, is there to offer a scathing reflection on this peculiar Tory pilgrimage. His take, fawning at Trump's altar, is not only unseemly but dangerously unwise. And I might add, delightfully entertaining to dissect and wag the finger at. Because Liz Truss, failure, not only failed as Prime Minister, but she failed to even get into the actual inauguration. Priti Patel, she didn't even make the cut. And Lawrence Fox, well, he's just a fellow traveller. But Nigel Farage, that person who's supposed to be, I'm supposed to be the bridge. It's supposed to be the bridge. Supposed to be the bridge. And what is he? He's nothing. He's not even acknowledged. He's an irrelevance. Now, you know, how is that? How is that for the man who says that he's not shallow? I'm not shallow. No, he's not shallow. You could paddle. You could paddle in the water that he leaves behind. It's absurd. Beginning with Boris Johnson, the sole Briton at Trump's inaugural service, a man whose career trajectory resembles a yo-yo on a trampoline, Boris has always had the knack for reinvention. That Trump, who once derided him as too woke, would invite Boris into his gilded inner sanctum, inner circle, the sphincter of life, speaks less to Johnson's transformation and more to Trump's ever-shifting loyalties. Boris, like the petulant, unsuspecting hemorrhoid that nestles into place. Boris, it seems, has achieved what Farage and Truss could not: acceptance, at least utility, or presence in Trump's theatrical court. Yet as Farage, as Kwarteng notes, the adulation directed towards Trump by British politicians often defies logic, not least because Trump's stock in Britain is lower than the pound post-mini budget. Kwarteng, writing with the precision of a man who knows his audience, but doesn't particularly care for their feelings, described this conservative pilgrimage as servile and unworthy. Many of those figures, he said, have had their careers effectively ended by the electorate. A stiletto-sharp observation from a man who knows what it's like to go limp in public. And particularly applied to Truss, who endured one of the shortest premierships in British history. Kwarteng, once Truss's closest ally, has now assumed the role of her most biting critic, a Shakespearean betrayal if ever there was one. Because what else can he do now, Quasi Kwarteng, except for use his knowledge of what it's like to have been up there waving around the most prodigious package in history, only to find it all deflates in reality. But he still has this razor-sharp mind. Kwarteng's broader point is one of caution. Why tie your political fate to a figure as polarising and unpredictable as Trump? His presidency, Kwarteng warns, is a journey into the unknown, a swirling vortex of naivety, of nativism, of chaos, of bombast. And British politicians, particularly those in opposition, have no strategic need to hitch their wagons to this American comet that may be plunging downwards, and yet here they are, queuing up like medieval pilgrims seeking relevance, redemption, or perhaps just a photo op, desperate for the headline. You'll be surprised. I'm surprised. I'm surprised that Kemi Badenoch isn't there. It's going to be a disaster! She could have been saying, she could have been writing history at that moment. Liz Truss, Suella Braverman, Nigel Farage, I'm not shallow, all of whom travelled to Washington in the bitter cold, must now confront their exclusion from Trump's inner circle. Braverman and Farage, both sitting MPs, perhaps hoped their vocal admiration of Trump would secure them a seat at the table, but it didn't, because they're irrelevant. At least Trump has the good sense to know this. Truss, meanwhile, appears to be auditioning for a post-political career on the American lecture circuit, or maybe in reality TV. Let me be clear. The hands are going everywhere. Yet the collective failure to breach the inner sanctum only underscores the futility of their pilgrimage, of her presence, of her hand gestures. What then does this tell us about the state of the Conservative Party? Quasi Kwarteng is there to tell us. He suggests that the Tories' flirtation with Trumpism is not only misguided but potentially suicidal. Trump's nativist rhetoric, his disdain for allies, his unpredictable policy shifts are at odds with British political sensibilities. More crucially, they alienate the very swing voters that Conservatives desperately need to win back. As Kwarteng rightly notes, Trump could end up doing a lot more damage, and those who cheerlead him could find themselves swept up in the fallout. And in the end, Kwarteng's criticism is not just a roast of his former colleagues, it's a wake-up call. Get away from the flatulence of Trump because you might get carried away. Aligning with Trump, he argues, is a gamble with no clear payoff, just an explosion of wind that could go anywhere. It risks alienating voters in the whirlwind of unpredictability, tarnishing reputations in the tornado of terror, and further fracturing an already divided party. Perhaps Kwarteng's newfound role as the Tory Cassandra will go unheeded, but his warning is clear. It's as prodigious as his package ever was. British politicians would do well to remember that the orange glow of Trump's spotlight often burns those who step too close. So, the spectacle of Boris, Trump's reluctant courtier, and the rest of the Tory pilgrims shivering in the Washington cold, for in their quest for relevance, like some sort of Gawain searching for his green knight. There he is. They've reminded us of the perils of worshipping at the altar of the unpredictable, the unknown, and the impossible to locate.